Hey everyone, there's nothing more dangerous than a very weak man with a whole lot of power. And Justin Trudeau definitely fits that description. You're talking about a man, I use that word loosely here, who has the full force, power, and might of the state at his disposal, painting the target or putting the bullseye on the unvaccinated. And what for? What is the purpose? Is it a dog whistle? Is he trying to rally his troops? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but I will say with utmost certainty that his rhetoric is very dangerous. Headline out of True North, clip resurfaces of Trudeau calling unvaccinated extremists, misogynists, racists. This report by Cosmin de Souza, January 4th, 2022. A recently resurfaced interview with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has some Canadians disgusted with the language the Liberal leader used when describing the country's nearly 10 million unvaccinated men, women, and children. In the September 16th, 2021 interview, which aired on the French language program La Semaine de For Julie, Trudeau referred to unvaccinated Canadians as extremists, among other derogatory terms. I just want to point out, actually, before I continue on, that 10 million number, that's probably lower now because, as you recognize, this was back in September. And more Canadians have definitely gotten vaccinated between then and now. So, like I say, that number might be off, but it's definitely still millions of Canadians. You see this tweet from James Melville. Wow, Trudeau went there. Yes, we will get out of this pandemic by vaccination. We all know people who are a little bit hesitant. We will continue to try and convince them. But there are also people who are fiercely against vaccination, said Trudeau. They are extremists who don't believe in science. They're often misogynists, also often racist. It's a small group that muscles in, and we have to make a choice in terms of leaders, in terms of the country. Do we tolerate these people? Or do we say, hey, most of the Quebec people, 80% are vaccinated. We want to come back to things we were doing. It's not those people who are blocking us. I just want to point out as well, and I'll include that article in the description of this video as well. But there was a Maclean's article that came out a while back now, but basically suggested that the typical anti-vaxxer in Canada, based on a poll or survey that they did, was a typical 42-year-old liberal woman. So when Trudeau's targeting the so-called anti-vaxxers as a bunch of misogynist, racist extremists, you got to remember, that typical 42-year-old liberal woman is being placed squarely in that camp. And do we tolerate them? What could that possibly mean? When the leader, like I say, the guy in charge of the state, like I say, the guy with all that power, all that might, all that force at his disposal, suggesting that maybe the Canadian people or he himself shouldn't tolerate the unvaccinated. Has echoes of the past, wouldn't you say? Trudeau's remarks caught international attention, with outlets such as GB News blasting the Prime Minister over his divisive tone. Scottish TV presenter and documentary filmmaker Neil Oliver appeared on the network to accuse the Prime Minister of demonizing unvaccinated Canadians, describing his remarks as borderline criminal. He's trying to turn a majority of his population against that group of people, Oliver said. And he's doing that by seeking to demonize them by saying that they're not just refusing the vaccine, they also hate black people and they hate women. And we know it's all right to punish people like that. So what's next for Justin Trudeau? Does he finally go on television and just say, right, the time has come, let's get him? He's setting people up as being lesser, as being other, as being despicable, as being guilty of things that are socially unacceptable. Misogyny, racism, Oliver continued. And to put those crimes onto people who are hesitant about an experimental medical procedure, I think is a disgrace. I think it's borderline criminal. This is not the first time where Trudeau has sought to rile up resentment against the unvaccinated for political points. In August 2021, Trudeau referred to unvaccinated Canadians as those people and claimed without evidence that they were putting others at risk. And Aaron O'Toole is siding with them, Trudeau added, instead of with Canadians who did their part and stepped up. It was only a year ago that Trudeau expressed misgivings about bringing vaccine passports to Canada, claiming he was concerned about their divisiveness and that he respected legitimate reasons for not getting vaccinated. There are medical reasons. There are a broad range of reasons why someone might not get vaccinated, Trudeau said. And I'm worried about creating knock-on undesirable effects in our community. Of course, he's going to speak out of both sides of his mouth at the same time. Like I said, I don't even understand why anyone has any faith or trust in politicians or the political establishment these days. It's mind-numbing to even think that people are that foolish or naive or gullible to believe any of these professional liars. But even more disturbing than that, folks, obviously, is the fact that Trudeau is out there, like I say, targeting, putting the bullseye on the unvaccinated. Well, I got to tell you, folks, I'm not too worried about Trudeau, nor should most of the unvaccinated be. But we all should worry about his mindless enforcers and the minions of Canadians who take his rhetoric quite seriously and will do his bidding. Things aren't looking so good on the old home front these days. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.